But first, one of the most successful and popular football teams in Soviet and Russian history is Spartak Moscow. But despite the club's prestigious 90-year history, the Red and Whites have never had their own ground. Until now. Konstantin Potapov reports on a dream that's been almost a century in the making.
The first stone of the future Spartak Stadium was laid in June 2007, but the original project was changed and building didn't actually start until 3 years later. The $400 million project includes a 45,000-seater football stadium and a 12,000-capacity indoor pitch. Construction work continues 24/7, and the ground is scheduled to host its first matches in March 2014.
We're working flat out, and even the Russian winter can't stop us. The actual building of the stadium should be finished by the end of this year, so Spartak will be able to play their first home game in the second part of next season on their very own turf.
Last September, Spartak Stadium was included on FIFA's list of arenas to hold World Cup matches in 2018. But for millions of red and white fans around the country, the future ground has already become special.
It's hard to imagine, but throughout their 90-year history, Spartak, the best supported and most successful side in the country, have never had their own stadium. And while there are still 5 more years to go before the eagerly awaited World Cup comes to Russia, for Spartak fans, the long-held dream of having their own ground will finally come true next year.
The football club was founded in 1922 and toyed with 2 names before finally becoming Spartak in 1935. The 4 Starostin brothers were famous members of the early teams, and it was the eldest, Nikolai, who proposed the name inspired by the legendary gladiator and slave Spartacus. The side quickly established themselves as Soviet heavyweights, winning 3 championships before the Second World War. However, all the other Moscow clubs were backed by government agencies and had their own stadiums. Dinamo were the police side and CSKA the armies, while Spartak was considered to be the people's team, and the nomadic side had to play at various grounds. Then, in 1956, the Luzhniki Stadium was erected, and the biggest Soviet sporting arena became home for Spartak for many years to come.
Starostin used to say that it was important for Moscow that the Luzhniki Stadium hosted matches. Every other Moscow side had their own ground, but only Spartak had a massive following in the stands. So, as the most popular team, we played at the biggest stadium.
In Soviet times, they said Spartak were offered the chance to buy the Luzhniki. But in those days, no one really thought of what would happen the next day, and we just kept playing there. It still belongs to the city. We considered the Luzhniki to be our home. When we hosted some of our rivals like Dynamo Kiev, 90,000 people would come.
Despite not having a ground to call their own, Spartak do have a training camp on the outskirts of Moscow, Tarasovka. The place has become iconic for all the red and white fans who've been welcomed there. And by the time the new stadium is open, they will also have a new training ground located near it.
We spent lots of time at Tarasovka. Players even celebrated their weddings there. Lots of fans attended the camp. It was fun to watch as they sat around Starostin in the stands, asking him for team news. Hopefully, this friendly atmosphere will continue at Spartak's new base.
After a successful decade in the 1990s, Spartak have since failed to win a trophy in 10 years. The Red and Whites are desperate to clinch a 10th Russian title, and the prospect of sealing it in their very own stadium would be a double dream come true. Konstantin Potapov, RT.